You're born looking like your dad, you die looking like your decisions. You're born looking like your dad, you die looking like your decisions. I'm going to play this clip.
This often. We drive what we drive by choice. We could go get nicer, newer cars, but we've made a mature decision to not feel intimidated when you meet your friends for lunch and everybody's jumping out of a new car and yours is 15 years old. You don't. We made a choice not to be affected by that. We made a choice to think, okay, if we decide to get married, if we don't have this amount of money in the bank, why would we spend that to throw a celebration? We're not gonna, you have to have those conversations as individuals, and then you make those decisions as families. And I heard someone say not too long ago, you're born looking like your dad, you die looking like your decisions. So how you leave this earth is going to be just how you made decisions.
I'm about to use that one.
Hey, I'm going to use that as well. I'm about to use that as well.
I'm taking that one.
That's real good.
All right, let's go ahead and dive into it. You're born looking like your dad looking like your decisions. Let me go ahead and get into Eric first. What are your thoughts about this, sir?
Wow. I mean, it's funny. I just came from a conference this weekend, and one of the things that was talked about during the conference is like we're all made up from the lineage that we came from, right? Whether it's great grandfathers, great great grandfathers, whatever, and it's not only just our looks but our behaviors. So I think that's true to a certain extent, and but I would like to say something not so much on the negative side of it, but like even on the positive side too, because we tend to look at just the bad things that our fathers did. We look at the bad things that the people before us did, but also, at least in my case, yeah, my dad did some things that was a little bit off, but he also did some great things too. And I see a lot of that in me as well. So sometimes it all depends on what you choose to see. And sometimes it's just the situation that you're in. So I do agree with the young lady, but then also like just her connotation was maybe a little bit on the negative side, and it's not always negative. Like there's some good things that, you get from your parents, especially your dad. I know I did.
All right. Sarah, what are your thoughts about it, man?
Well, I agree to a certain point because I know that we make decisions based on our environment or childhood trauma that affects who we are and how we respond to situations. So that's, pretty much how we get our decisions done. However, I also believe that we're adults and we are responsible. We need to stop victimizing ourselves and heal from our traumas from childhood and start taking accountability and responsibility, just like, the previous person said. Look at the positive and negative. Like if my father, example, because my father is not an alcoholic, was an alcoholic, some people excuse themselves, oh, my father was an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic too. But, it's for you to break that chain and say, you know what, I don't want to do that. I want to do better than that because I am responsible for my life. But we want to excuse ourselves and say, okay, I'm this way because of my parents, because of my mom, because of my father. And it's not easy. It's not easy to heal. For sure, I am the oldest out of 7 on my dad's side. And I can see from each of my siblings, we have had different experience, but at the same time, the same experience, but affected us differently. So one of my sister is more resentful, and I am more like understanding on my parents. So, it depends on how we grew, and our characters are also involved. But in a way, it's true what she's saying, in a way.
All right. Go ahead, Luis. What are your thoughts about it, sir? You're born looking like your dad looking like your decisions.
That's an interesting that was an interesting take. I actually had to write that one down. I agree with it. I do see where Eric was coming from when he laid out his perspective to begin with. I would say is that the first 18 years of your life, I think that you're giving a prescriptive programming in which you need to be able to get to a certain point in your life and realize you need to unprogram all the bad habits and all the bad characteristic traits that were bestowed upon you, right? You were taught certain mannerisms and certain habits that are not conducive for you to evolve as an adult. And sort of, I think you got to get to a point where you got to make the decision to unlearn those things. So like that, you could eventually start making better decisions in your life. Because those things will set you back. I think that it's sometimes a cop out for people to hide that behind the, the idea that my dad was an abuser or my dad was an alcoholic or my parents were this. Everybody goes through circumstances, but unfortunately, the unpopular truth is that the world does not owe you any explanation. And I think that you have to grow and evolve and put yourself in a position to kind of not follow in those bad footsteps, right? Set better standards for yourself, set better standards for, for the family or the people that you want around you, right? And I think you got to grow and evolve and learn that. Do a lot of self-taught, read, spend time around other people and learn things, ask questions, be inquisitive, right? Your decisions don't have to mirror your upbringing conditions. I've seen people change their life. We've seen people all the time, single parent household, foster care, bounce from house to house, and they've managed to find a way to push through and change their life for the better. Some don't make it through the filters, unfortunately, but for those who do, they push through the veil. And sometimes those conditions put them in a mindful situation to always remind them that they will never return back to the upbringing or the conditions that were presented to them. So I don't think you can end up looking like your dad, but you don't have to take on the decisions that they made. So how you?
All right, I'm gonna go to Stacy. You're born looking like your dad looking like your decisions.
Yeah. So I agree with it. I think like at least everyone on this panel, I think we're looking at it in such like a negative way. And part of the reason why is because there has been such a huge absence of the father in the household, or just the lack of presence in general and leading like what an actual example of it means to be like a man. And in that, I think because we are so conditioned to believe that the father may have made bad decisions, we're automatically assuming that idea is going to push onto the kids. But I think there are plenty of people who have come from very healthy backgrounds whose father is very much present, who can relate to their dad on a personal level, who still at the end of the day have to make their own decisions, right? Like there are people who've come from great homes who are still alcoholics and drug addicts. And those were the decisions that they have made to get to that place. And so knowing that like in our entire world, we're always going to be presented with a series of options and decisions, that essentially is saying that like, yeah, you're born like looking like your dad, but at the end of the day, like whatever decisions you make throughout the course of your lifetime, if you're not necessarily changing the trajectory of your life or whether you're actually gravitating to the healthy part of your dad, that is the result of your decisions.
All right, Brother Hank, what are your thoughts about it, sir?
Yeah. Born looking like your dad. You die looking like your decisions. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I look dead on like my father. I can't deny that. That dude could deny me. But as far as the decisions, yeah, I mean, I strongly believe that. You know, if you decide you want to go down a path that you was taught, maybe raised differently on, and you decided you want to do that, whatever consequence comes your way, you deserve it. Regardless of what is death, you deserve that because you choose to make those decisions, those questionable decisions, those sketchy decisions, those bad decisions, or whether good decisions. Whatever consequences come your way, you deserve it. I tell my son all the time, you know, there's consequences to your actions, whether they're good or bad. There's going to be a consequence regardless. Which way are you going to go? So yeah, I believe that you do You do die living. I mean, you die looking like your decisions for sure.